When I was born in the 1970s, my parents had just got their first phone in the house. Before that, they had to go down the road to queue at the public telephone box in order to make a phone call. Now, today, in our house, we have 6 telephones. We have a landline, an office phone, and 4 mobiles. In our house today, we have more telephones than people. When I was growing up in the 1980s, we had 1 phone line, but 2 phones, one upstairs and one downstairs, and they were both on long leads so that you could take them into a warm room to make a phone call. Anyone remember this? Yes. But long distance phone calls were really expensive, and we hardly ever made them. These days, I can call anywhere in the world for almost nothing using WhatsApp or Skype. And when I went to university in 1993, I got my first email address. But there was a problem. I only knew one other person in the whole world who had an email address. My aunt, who happened to work at another university. Compare that to today, when 95% of the British population are online and have at least one email address, probably. I reckon I've currently got about 5 that I use. So this morning we're thinking about the internet and social media. Computers have transformed our world and how we communicate in the last 30 years. But like any technology, it's how we use it and how it interacts with human nature that matters. Because we human beings are fallen and fallible, we can use technology for good, or we can use it for bad. So how can we as Christians use the internet and social media well? What do we mean by the internet and social media? Well, the internet is simply computers connected to each other across the world. And social media uses the internet to allow us to share ideas, information and interests with other people. There are lots of different social media platforms. Here's a selection of them: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, WhatsApp, and more. It's my guess that most of us, if we do anything on the internet, use at least one of these. You may even think that you don't use social media, but if you use WhatsApp to talk to your family or YouTube to watch videos, you do. None of this existed 20 years ago. None of it. And now, nearly half the world's population who are over 13 use Facebook each month. Half the world's population who are over 13 use Facebook each month. That is a lot of people, isn't it? And so because of that, social media is shaping how we live, how we work, how we communicate. It's one massive social experiment, really. And there will be good things about it and bad things about it. So let's talk about some of the good things. The main thing about social media that's good is that it allows us to communicate with friends and family, to share news, good and bad, and to make connections with people we've never actually met in person. So I use Facebook to keep in touch with friends, some of whom live a long way away, and many of whom I haven't seen in years. And on Facebook as well, there are support groups for all sorts of people. Bereaved parents, people struggling to lose weight, people who've been abused, people who are depressed, and more besides. These support groups that exist within Facebook allow people to support one another, and they can be incredibly helpful. I know people who have found those kind of groups a lifeline at difficult times in their life. There are also Facebook groups for our local area, and I know that many of you are members of those as well. And they help us in our community locally share news and often whinge about lots of things. I'm in a WhatsApp group with my immediate family here in Lee, and so that we can say things like, "Where are you?" and "What's for dinner?" and "Why aren't you home yet?" And that's often directed at me, that one. I'm in groups with my wider family, with friends, and with people from across the Church of England. I know if I go and look at my phone at the moment, I will have had probably about 50 WhatsApp messages waiting for me. But it's a good way to keep in touch with people, especially people a long way away. As a church, around 40 people a week join the parish Eucharist online via Facebook or YouTube. These are people who can't, many of them, get to church on a Sunday, but they can still be part of our church community and connect with us by joining online. I think that's brilliant. What a great use of social media, and a wonderful thing to be able to do. So social media helps us connect with other people, especially people who live a long way away. But it's not perfect. We can use it for good, but it can also be used, maybe inadvertently, for harm. Or it may not be good for us, as we might see. So what do we need to remember when we consider using social media? The first thing to remember is this: social media is not real life. When we post on social media, we are putting a snapshot of our lives on it, not the whole picture. We choose the things we want to share on social media. We use it to present an image of ourselves to the world. I saw this the other day. Me on social media versus me in real life. Sometimes I look at social media, Facebook, and see all the wonderful things my friends have done over the weekend. Maybe they've been skiing for the weekend, or they've gone on a city break, or they show some pictures of their perfect looking family, all smiling and happy after a beautiful walk in the countryside. And then I think about what I did over the weekend. I cleaned the bathrooms, did the washing, and I had a long discussion, some might call it an argument, about the game we were going to play as a family. Because we are going to do something together, and we are going to enjoy it. People put the best bits of their life on social media. And then we compare our day-to-day existence with that, and it makes our lives look boring and dull by comparison. But that's not what's going on. I saw this the other day. Don't compare your real life to someone else's controlled online content. We compare ourselves on social media, and it makes us feel jealous of others and bad about our own lives. The Bible reminds us, be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be content with what you have and hold on to the fact that you have something so special, so precious in your life. God is with you, giving your life meaning and purpose, even in the day-to-day ordinariness of life. So remember, social media is not the real world. Secondly, don't believe everything you see online. Just because it's on the internet doesn't make it true. People are good at making things up. Have a look at this. Don't believe everything you see on social media. To quote Donald Trump, this is fake news. And it is a real thing. During the pandemic, there were lots of scare stories about vaccines circulated online. They weren't safe. They couldn't be trusted. They were going to rewrite your DNA. The government were just trying to microchip us all, and more besides. Most of it was nonsense, but because it was about vaccines against COVID, some of it had real life consequences. There are plenty of people who spread vaccine misinformation on social media, and they tweeted all of this and shared it. But then there were some people who then tweeted, I've tested positive for COVID. And there were some people who then stopped tweeting at all because they died. So, social media misinformation has real life consequences sometimes. As Christians, we believe in the truth. And that means making sure that what we post on Facebook and on other social media is fair and factual. If you're not sure, check something before sharing it or commenting on it. Don't become a spreader of fake news. Don't believe everything you read on the internet because there's a picture with a quote next to it, said Abraham Lincoln, or probably not. Thirdly, don't pick fights on social media. Twitter can be a very ugly place at times, as people pile on to disagree with someone else, or to condemn someone for something that they're said to have done. Things can get out of hand very quickly, and women in particular can find themselves being threatened with terrible abuse. People feel that they can say things online that they would never ever dream of saying to a person who was there face to face in front of them. For us Christians, Jesus commands us, do unto others as you would have them do to you. Treat others like you would want to be treated. On the internet, it's easy to forget that you're dealing with people. So be kind in person and online. That person you're disagreeing with is a person made in the image of God and loved by Him. So love them too. Treat them as you would want to be treated. I love this meme. Are you coming to bed? I can't. This is important. What? Someone is wrong on the internet. Don't let that be you. Don't pick fights on social media. Fourthly, social media is fine, but prioritise in-person relationships. Yesterday, I saw a dad with a kid pushing a pushchair out for a walk. And I thought that's a great time for that dad to talk to his child, to point out what they were seeing. Oh, look, there's a plane, there's a fox. To talk and connect father to son. But none of that was happening, because as they were walking along, the dad was on social media on his phone. He was engaged with the rest of the world online by his phone, but not with his child, who was right there in front of him. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but you sometimes see couples out for lunch, which is a great moment for them to catch up and relate to one another. And one or both of them are glued to their phones. Getting likes from complete strangers on social media is more important to me than getting love from you in real life. So if you find yourself constantly checking whether you've got a WhatsApp message, or whether someone has liked your Facebook post, or what your friends have posted on Instagram, instead of engaging with the person right in front of you, then maybe it's time to put your phone down and connect with the people that you are with. Finally, we need to pay special attention to what social media is doing to our young people. As I said, we are engaged in a great social experiment at the moment. We have given all our young people smartphones that they can carry around with them and are permanently connected to the internet. And basically we've said to them, off you go, and we're watching what's happening to teenage life as we've done so. Teenage life is changing because of the invention of the smartphone, and not necessarily in a good way. Listen to this. This is from a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. Kids now grow up much more slowly. Activities that are commonly thought to mark the transition from childhood to adulthood are happening later. For example, having a job, driving a car, drinking alcohol, going out on a date. Teenagers wait longer to do these things and then do less of them than did members of previous generations. Instead of engaging in these activities, which usually involve interacting with other people face to face, teens today are spending much more time alone, interacting with screens. 18-year-olds now act like 15-year-olds used to, and 13-year-olds like 10-year-olds. Teens are physically safer than ever because they're not going out, and yet they are more mentally vulnerable. Researchers are now looking at the effect of the internet and social media on teenagers, and this is what they find. Things that tend to make teenagers happy are in yellow, and things that can make kids unhappy are in blue on this picture. So heavy use of the internet, social media, gaming and texting are risk factors for unhappy kids. It doesn't mean that all kids who do those things are unhappy. It means it's more risky that they will be unhappy if they do those things. On the other hand, kids that do these things tend to be happier. Sleeping at least 7 hours a night, exercise, taking part in religious services, in-person social interaction, reading, and working. I wonder what you make of that. I find that really fascinating, and I have a hunch that it also applies to adults and not just children. So we need to help our young people navigate social media, and us adults as well, because social media is not going away anytime soon. And we need to do the things to help them do the things that we know will make them happier. Being physically with other people, sleep, exercise, reading, coming to church even. So where have we got to? Well, social media is great for keeping in touch with friends and family, and for joining online services, as many people will have done today here. But it's not real life. Hundreds of social media friends is no substitute for one or two friends that you can sit down with in real life and talk about how things really are for you. And it's important we as Christians learn to navigate social media well and to behave in Christ-like ways when we do. Finally, I want to end with Paul's words to the Philippians, which I read earlier. And I think these are so relevant when it comes to social media. Whatever is true, whatever is honourable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things.